Well, kind of an English day outside. Should do the video out there, but hell with it. Response video to Laura Layla, I think. I believe so. Ooh, mirror. Anyway, whoa, camera. Somewhere, I think I'll put it there. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It's a little distracting. Anyway, alright, where was I? Okay, so determinism seems to be part of the theme. Yeah, the rest of this stuff about the self thing, I guess I must have mentioned Fred's video talking about the embiggening your self, whatever crap, and the fact that we've had experiences that might, where we sail off a little bit, on drugs and whatnot, and the container of our self projects, and in the end he said, I don't know whether that means anything, and I would conclude it doesn't mean a damn thing. I called it entertainment before. Yeah, sometimes our psychology entertains us, with little wonderland adventures, but that's all they are. They're just silly entertainments. They have no philosophical meaning. You really can't make Freudian significance out of any of this crap. I mean, you can. People can. They try to. But it's bullshit. It doesn't really get to anything important, does it? No. And the important thing is our perception of how we contextualize what we're doing here. And that's where I'm going to argue there's just way too much of this. Let's make it into something more than it's not. Let's maintain the preposterous propaganda, the oversold nature of the life experience and adventure, the whole embiggening of the universe and the embiggening of our grand adventure. And we can see what our grand adventure is. We've turned our planet into pretty much a toilet, and you can't watch mass media. If you have any kind of brain at all, it'll turn it into it will say something's terribly wrong. That's what your brain will say. If it has any kind of character at all, it's gonna recognize that there's nothing big. It's tiny. It's so small. The mind of the average human, as a human species, we seem small-minded. We're preposterous assholes. I mean, from space, looking at Earth. Looking at Earthlings, and they're, I'll use the generic American Idol standard. We're a pitiful joke. So anyway, determinism, as it came up, and Laura Layla is still clinging to some idea that, well, I've broken determinism because I had the idea to trick my gaming psychology by saying I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what I first think of doing. And that somehow that thought that came into her head that said, let's do the exact opposite, wasn't just as determined as the original thought that said, let's do what we usually do. And they're both non-original thoughts. We're not original. Everything we build, everything that we say, everything that we construct in terms of what we put together is put together by pieces. And those pieces have a history and an origin. Every word you understand, the definition of it, the context of it, your thoughts connected to it, they're all built out of experiences. There's just nothing, you cannot be, you can't make the matter of what you project, what your brain creates. Just like an Einstein thing, you can't create it or destroy it. It doesn't. It's made out of pieces that have an origin, that have a history. There's a cause and effect to every bit of it. There's no special energy. It is mechanical. I mean, you don't like it, but it's just as mechanical as a computer. It's just really screwed up software. But it's just software. I mean, it's just doing the program. It's going to fail, and everything it's going to do is going to be because of a circumstance that isn't original. That isn't made out of something outside the realm of a cause. Yeah. So there is no true there's nothing truly spontaneous in the world. There isn't. It's everything is mechanically driven. It's a mechanical universe. The instrument of the mechanics is this small particle physics, but it's rock solid. And there's no room for any. A bit of me is going to try to game the game. It can't game the game. It can't game the game with anything but another game, another delusion, another piece of fraud, another contrivance, another piece of mechanics, another weapon, another whatever it's always going to be something built out, the same stuff the other stuff was built out. So I guess I'd just say it's like the infinite regression problem with a God. Just like you can't, the idea that, okay, so let's say there was a God, then you have to come up with some explanation for how God got there. I mean, the idea that was always there is silly. So, yeah, you got to figure, well, it had parents. It had gods that gave birth to the God. And then you got to go back another step and say there's parents to that God. And, it's just your infinite regression problem. And there's the same thing with saying that you're going to game the system inside your head. You got an infinite regression problem. You're not going to spontaneously come up with that notion. The notion's going to be part of the system. All right, so to get to the subtext, I hope that was helpful. I'm not trying to give you a lecture on determinism, but you're so close to saying, yes, I'm a determinist, but you're just holding out, and you're holding out on something I think is just preposterously thin. The fact that you have a thought to try to trick your brain into not being you, that just becomes another piece of you. That's just another thing that could be rolling around your head for 20 years, and the idea bounces into some other idea, and it bounces into some other idea just by the course of events, by the stream eddy and the flow, and you just can't change that stuff. There's just no magic energy or magic force that's going to make that thing push into that or that one push into that sooner. It's going to take exactly how long it's going to take, and it's going to require the circumstances, the storms. Even when it's a perfect storm, they still have to come together. Everything, all the pieces have to do their job, and your brain's doing the same thing. All right, so to the consciousness problem, which is sort of an undercurrent of this thing. What is consciousness? And me and Nick went through this whole thing about trying to describe how the brain's functioning, and I think we settled on something close to the idea, that there's, our brain's projecting a sense. It's the world comes in, and one part of our brain is basically projecting an interpretation, a reaction. So we could call that a feeling, and this feeling is projected into the atmosphere of our. I don't know if we even did this much, but well, anyway, that it's projected into this atmosphere of what we're feeling. We described it through computer screens, but yeah, and so there's a reflex that creates this feeling. So something comes in. I, as a little program inside of the brain, says create the sensation of, and it pops into the screen that is the consciousness thing. And that screen is being read by another part of my brain that's saying, what do I feel right now? It's like the two aren't connected. So it's like two brains. It's consciousness is the mixture of these, where these two brains see the world through the same eye. And so another part of my brain is saying, how do I feel? Well, even though the other brain is creating the feelings, this brain doesn't know that the other brain is creating the feeling. And so it's just kind of saying, how do I feel? I'm kind of anxious, kind of uncomfortable, and then it tries to figure out why, and then it would say, the other thing it's going to do is figure out, well, how do I solve the problem of it? Do I need something? Am I hungry? Do I desire something? Am I lonely? Am I bored? Am I some other kind of stupid thing that I have to resolve? Do I have some problem, some sense of deprivation, like right now this position isn't good enough, and so I'm a little... I'm just kind of, it's just not a perfectly comfortable position. This arm seems too high, and this one's too low, and it's kind of a gray day, and I'm feeling a little and I'm just, And so that's an atmosphere that's been created for me. And it's like my senses. You can trail your senses. You know, like I could say, here's my leg. I could do a knee jerk right here, and what's going to happen is my leg's going to react. But what's also going to happen is now that we have these sense organs, you know, this little guy creating these sensations, is I'm going to get some feedback of sensation also. So what comes first, the jerk or the sensation? Well, we know it's the jerk that comes first. So there's just a reflex that says move. And so that was the first crude organism. It just moved. It didn't think about it, didn't feel about it, it just did. But now I sense, my senses are all connected into this sixth sense thing. And they're modified. They're not just reflexive. So it's not like, you know, this, you know, a hand comes to my eye blinks. That's a reflex. But now I can feel some of that sensation. I can have a wince and a sense of other feelings that are connected to that. And those are creations of this new brain, this newer brain, that creates these sensations, these feelings in this atmosphere. Because the only purpose of having feelings would be to have that other guy in your head. There's no purpose in creating the consciousness screen, you know, the feeling screen, if there isn't somebody to look at it and say, well, how do we fix this feeling problem? You get me? So consciousness is this tricky reflex. So we have the knee jerk, the simple, you know, the crudest form of a brain function, of neurology. We have this secondary one, you know, that creates a sensation. But a sensation without a thinking person, a problem solver, is of no value. It's of no value for a tree to want to walk across the street, right? Because it can't do it. So it's not going to feel want to walk across the street because there's just no point, because it can't do it. It's not a moving instrument. We are, so that's why we have this capacity. I mean, yeah. What else needs to be said? Yeah, so, but anyway, this is, yes, people don't like this reductionism, but this is what's happening. We basically are just made of different computer style, let's just say, processing programs, which are just reflexes. You know, if this, do that. That's what our brain is doing. That's what all these billions and billions of neurons are doing, or just testing environments. And they're saying, if it passes the test, then send some electricity down this wire. And that's all that's happening. And it's just not any more complicated than that. It is garbage in, garbage out. We can see it all through human history. I mean, a human being 10,000 years ago was only deprived of knowledge. They were deprived of better software. So they were running, you know, Windows 3.1, and it was just, well, we should say Windows 95, because that was even worse software. Yeah, they had a shitty operating system plus crap software equals waste a lot of time. But that was the only difference between us, is they were programmed badly, and we are programmed more civilized. Unfortunately, we're still not good enough. It's still, the programming isn't good enough because people haven't realized the context, the nature of the game, which is you're being gamed by a DNA molecule. It's worked for billions of years, essentially, worked through, you know, a preposterous number of experiments to engineer machines that play the competitive game. And it's going to take a little time for us to step away from that and be able to step away from that. And we still haven't done it. We still haven't got software that enables us to be, you know, to quit looking for the feeling part of life and to understand it as a let the thinker do the reacting. And until human beings do that, until they react to the world as an understanding, not as a personal expression of comfort or discomfort, in my opinion, they're going to get it wrong. They're not going to understand the game they're playing. They're going to play it badly because they're playing the wrong game. yeah, so I've used these themes. I'll keep using that one. I think that's a good theme. Actually, I think it's a good way to get to the point here, is that all this stuff is really important. I mean, Conference Report says no big deal in one of his comments to me at the end. And, you know, I'm sorry. All this stuff is a hugely big deal. And anytime you wander off the path, anytime you take the people, you know, down little trails of bullshit, is it's just going to make it that much harder to get them back, you know, on the right road. And it's also going to prejudice them to the real information highway, to the real the real road, because the real road isn't going to be very charming. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be emotionally satisfying. It's not going to be poetic and metaphoric, and it's not going to have a stoic narrative, you know, to use all the standard jargon. No, the reality road is going to be stark, ugly, nasty, unyielding, unforgiving. It's not going to give you anything. And in fact, it's going to make it hard for you to keep walking it. It's going to be so hot and dry and noxious to your immediate senses. It's taken me my whole life, essentially, right, to acclimate myself to an understanding that I'm in a shitty circumstance, that I'm in a world not habitable, you know, with what has become my psychology. And because it is that bad. I mean, the truth is just doesn't give you anything. The truth just takes it all away. It will turn it all into what it is, which is just stupid bits and bytes of bullshit, and at the price of you know, sensitive creatures suffering pointlessly. And it's just, there's no redemption. All there is just the understanding that here we have this horror. We're going to perpetuate it over and over again, because human beings can learn nothing, and they're too selfish, you know, to even, selfish isn't even the right word. I mean, it is stupidity, right? I mean, it all comes down to stupidity. I mean, criminals are criminals because they're stupid more than anything else. It's not that they're psychotic, it's that they're stupid. Because if they were smart enough to know they were doing something that they couldn't justify rationally, then even though they wanted to do it, they would know they can't do it because they can't justify it rationally. But anyway, that's a whole other point. Yeah, but the barrier to getting people to endure, to face a negative truth, it really isn't that high a barrier. But yeah, the problem is any barrier is one they're going to run from until somebody tells them they have an obligation. Until they're obligated to say, yes, the truth matters, they're just going to keep pretending it doesn't matter, and escaping it wherever possible, and wandering down little, you know, trails of more pleasant to the senses, places where it's more pleasant to the senses, but it's not more fair to the truth. Okay, made my point. I believe I have made my point substantially, for the most part. Alright, so I guess we'll call it enough of a video and such. Digital photo frame. Yeah. Anyway, I like it. Till next time and such. I really think that's enough.